So like always, welcome to the Tape Partners Roundtable webinar. I'm Luis, and to join me is Jason. And in this webinar, what we're going to do, we're going to cover something that is how to create tables and CSS classes in the calculation field. And as always, we're going to have start our webinar with a update from the Tape team, or August update, and we'll follow up with the demonstration, and then with a question and answer. And John today is going to be joining us today too. Right. So perfect. Thank you guys for coming. So the Tape team, you can take over, show us what you got on your end.
Yes, today I will take over. We are currently very deep in the development of the new record frame. And here, especially in the record layouts, this is a brand new feature which currently is not available in Tape. And so I want to give you a small introduction, but on my mock-ups, because we are at the moment, we just bring the stuff together, so it's hard to show how it fits together in Tape, but I show you the current status. So I try to share. Let's go here, whole screen. So, can you see my screen? So, can everybody see my screen at the moment?
Yep.
Yes.
Good.
Perfect. So, current development focus is record layouts. For what we will use record layouts, or what are the benefits for you guys. And this is I wanted to explain this 4 bullets here. So you can now, for the first time, have different layouts for record creation and record opening. This is a key point, which was very important for us to bring this a new record, that you have different creation and opening layouts. As you know from many tools, creation is often very simple, a small creation step, and then you have a larger record. Then you have the possibility to have different layouts on desktop and mobile. Usually we automatically adapt the desktop layout to the mobile app, but in the future you can have dedicated layouts, as you probably most of the time don't want to have all your fields in a mobile layout, especially when you have larger apps. Then the third point is something very important or great for all our partners, which is the perfect place here for our webinar. So because with layouts, you have the possibility for kind of staging, as you can change the record layout for your users and set it as default or as a current live layout later. So as many of you probably know, you have a larger organization, and when you change something, every user sees this immediately. And this you can now do during operating hours and make it live, or as a default then at the evening or at the morning, whatever you like. So you are not bounded to different times here anymore. And then you have a special personalized layouts for different user group. You can assign layouts to user groups. So when you have larger organizations, you can give every team different layouts for the records. And I'll show you how it will look like. For the first impression is here, the menu. So as you know, in the future, in the new record, as you know already from the forms, you can change your layout or your field template is the current wording or the app creator with unlock. So when you unlock the new record to open your app creator, you start very plain, like you do it at the moment at Tape. You have just one field layout. This is the main layout. You can delete that, and then you can add as many layouts as you want. And this is what I wanted to show you here. You can add view 1, view 2, or creation layout, and then at the moment you set it as default, every user gets it as default when he opens the next record. So you can change all the field, remove fields, add fields, and then you can set it live to a moment you choose. And I wanted also to show you how layouts and templates fit together, because showed you at the beginning, we wanted to enable a different creation layouts and opening layouts. And there you can now, in the future, can set in your record layouts or in your main default layouts for the whole company, a dedicated creation layout, any layout you have created. And also, this is another advantage, a new feature for the new record. You have different creation and opening types. I can show you that now on a few examples. So first you pick a layout which defines all your fields in your field layout. And then you say you want to open it in the creation in the center peak, in the compact peak, or a top peak. With these three opening types or creation types, we will start. And I can show you them now. What is the difference? This is the top peak. So now you can have for creation very small overlays for not when you have, for example, a task management app or a small project management, or also for contact creation, where mostly 2 or 3 fields are enough, the name, the email address, to create a contact. And then later for opening, you can have much more information. And this type also expands when you get more information in. And then you have a compact peak, also a bit smaller, but much larger than the top peak. And this is the classic tape record model, as you probably know at the moment. As you see now, the creation button is at the bottom. And you have then also here for the center peaks 3 different sizes in the width. So this gives you all this combination possibilities. So you have 3 different sizes for this type. And when you create the record, you have here your comments, as you know, but you can choose according to your to the use case how large you want to have your record. And overall, we will get additionally a full page opening type, so you can also open your record in the future as a full page. So that's it from my presentation.
I love it. Fantastic job.
Thank
Wait. Can't wait. Okay, perfect. So let's continue with the demonstration of HTML and CSS in the calculation fields. So what we're going to do, we're going to start with, I created a template workspace so I can demonstrate what we got. Let me actually share my screen real quick. I think it's this one. Okay, perfect. So this is a workspace that has the CSS calculations. So here we have static table, dynamic tables, items, which is connected to the dynamic table, some CSS sample, and something that I call the controller. I'm going to go over all of them. And so this workspace is located in the Tape Partners organization. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change the permissions here to, I think it was here. I'm gonna put it to open so everybody can see it. So if you want to follow along on your end, you can follow along and see the calculations fields. And if you're a tape partner and you're not part of this or tape partner organization, contact Jason or me and we can give you access. So let's begin first with the static table. So the static table, if I go over here to this app and I open the table examples, you can see that you can create different types of tables using the calculation fields. This is a very basic table. This one is with inline CSS and something that is called the variable CSS. I will go over each one of them. So let's start with this one. This one is a very simple table. If I go to customize fields and I go to the editor, this is just a simple table, HTML table using the template letter rows and a comment for the title, and that's it. Very simple. And you can, the good thing about here is since I'm using template literals, I can use expressions, I think they're called. So let's say if I want to add the title here, all I need to do is use the expression, and then I will have access to the variables and it will appear over here in the table. So that's if you have like a static table that you want to use it, very simple, very straightforward. So that's what that one is. But if you notice, if I go back to the example, you see that this one doesn't have any styling. It's just a table, no styles. You can add styles by using inline CSS. So let's go back over here, customize fields, and the inline CSS. And as you can see here, the calculation field has this one, the table style, color here, style, background color. So what this does is gives me some styling options down here in the preview. Very cool. One thing to note is that the tape calculations field does not allow you to use global CSS types like styles like you have in the normal HTML document, but you can only use inline CSS. What that basically means is that you need to put the CSS styles inside each HTML entity. So for example, in this one, if I wanted to add a background to the table head, I need to put it inside this one, style, and put it in this HTML element. Same with all the headings here. And when you do that, you have the styling. It's for very basic options, you can do that. But so one of the things is that if you had so you have all of them here. If you had the global CSS styles, you won't have to rewrite all the CSS on each HTML entity. As you can see here, if I wanted to update all of these headings, I will need to manually write each and every one of them to be able to update. This is inline CSS. So one thing is there is a very ingenious way that JSON came up with that simulates a global CSS in the tape calculations field. So let me show you what that is. Really cool. Let's go back to the table variable CSS. And what this one has is something called a constant with a style. If you see here, this style contains all the CSS styles I want to use in the table. So what this basically is a very basic JSON object with all the CSS variables and their respective styling. So for example, if you want to add one of these styles to an HTML entity, all you need to do is use this expression, style, and then equal, and then you add the expression, you make a reference to the constant styles, that, and then you select the one that you need. And what this will do, for example, in the background one, styles, that HBG is going to give me a background. So it will change it over here. So I have the CSS over here. So let's say that I want to change the heading background. Let's say instead of this bluish color, let's change it to red. So all I need to do is go over here and just type, let's say red, and then it will change down here. Very simple. So instead of having to go one by one, you just change them up here. In this scenario, since it's like in the table head, I'm just only editing one. But what if I need to edit multiple? So for example, in this case, I got the name, the position, email, and age in this one. And each one has their own headings, her own inline CSS, but all of them reference the same variable. So let's say I want to change the color. Let's say I want to put red and text align left. So what that's going to happen is going to move all of them at the same time. It's very simple, just to have like a simple CSS global variable or simulation of what it is. So that's very useful, at least for something very basic like this table. So that's basically how it is. So you have different options on how to have your own CSS table. So any questions so far? Okay, perfect. So these are samples. What I showed you is an example of static tables. These are useful when you're referencing like fields that don't really change. But What if you wanted to make a dynamic table that changes based on the relationships from another apps? And you can actually do that. So let's go over here and go to the dynamic table app. And this one is basically taking the values from the related fields and putting them in this table. So that's what this one does. So this one is pulling the data from another app that is called items. So let me just go there real quick to the items app. And this one is very simple. It's just like a quote thing: product, quantity, price, and a calculation for the total. And the most important element is the relation to the specific record that I want to reference. And when you have that, as you can see here, these three items are referenced to that sample dynamic table. If I go back to the sample dynamic over here, you see that these items are referenced here. So now let me go how each calculation works, because there are different ways of doing it. So this one is with something called HTML plus equal. This one is template literal, and this one is with editing. I'm going to leave this one for last because it's really cool. So let's start with this one. So one way that you can do this is if you go to the table HTML plus equal, you see here that I'm saying, okay, these are the products and the information from the other app. And this basically is a reference from the related table. So I'm just referencing the all product, I'm referencing the all quantity, and so on, and making them as a simple variable here. And then in here, I'm basically using a variable called HTML, and then keep adding the head and the body, and then add a for loop here to make them all into a loop. And then down here, I call them in the body. And what that does is makes each time you add something into the related, it's going to be added in the table one after the other. That's how this one works. This is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is with using the template literals. So let's go to this one. And it's the same step as before, but this one has the styles. And then I format the table. And then I'm using the map. I'm mapping the products, making them into an array, and then returning the string. And the good thing about this approach, it works the same as the other, but this one uses template literal, so I don't need to have HTML plus equal, and adding plus in here. I just put the constant HTML and add the table here, and above here, I join the rows that I need to add. So this one is a little bit more efficient and more cleaner than the other one. You don't have to do as many as the other approach. It works the same. So I put both in the template so you can pick up which one works for you for the specific situation. So that's one way of doing it. And when you have that, you have the tables here that auto update automatically. Now that I explained how the template literals table works, I'm going to show you something very cool. So let's say that you want to edit this table, but you don't want to leave these records. So that's why in this table, you see that there's an edit dropdown. So let's see what it does. So let's say that I want to edit this item one. So I'm going to click here, edit. And what that's going to do is going to open and scroll, and I can see the other record. So let's say I want to change the price. Let's say I'm going to be greedy. It's going to be $200. So when I click enter, boom, it changes here automatically. And it changing all the other tables because they're all related. So it's really cool. And let's say I want to change item 3. I select the drop down, and it will pull the other record. And let's say I want to change the quantity to 2. Press enter, and boom, it changed everything. So that's really cool for specific things. So let me show you how exactly does that work. And so let me go to the automation, to the calculation. I'm going to go here, and it's the same as the template literal, but is using a constant from the iframe base URL. So the base URL is basically, let me go back. I'm taking from the items, I'm taking this link over here on the top, the address of here. I don't think you can see that, but that's basically what I'm taking. And then here on the bottom, I'm adding another variable, which is constant iframe source. So basically, I'm taking the base URL and then adding the record ID. So the record ID is important. This is the most important part to make it work. So what I'm basically adding the record ID at the end. And to be able to use the record ID, you need to do the following in the Items app. You go here, you're gonna create a new calculation field called record ID, and then you're gonna reference the record ID from this item. And then what that will give you is the record ID for each specific way. So when you create the URL, it will create the URL that you need for each specific one. So when you go back over here, customize, edit, and then it will create the URL / the record ID. And then it's the same thing as the other one. So in this case, I'm adding the regular product, quantities of totals in one row, and below that row, I'm adding the edit one. So as you can see here, this is using something called a CSS element called detailed content. It's basically like a drop-down. It's called details and a summary, and then you add the summary. And in here, I'm using an iframe. So I'm basically creating an iframe inside the calculation field, and it's pulling the link from the tape record. Really neat. One very important thing about this one is that you see here that iframe loading lazy. This is important to add because let's say you have a records, a table that is referencing like 20 records. If you don't add this, it's gonna load all of the links at the same time. With loading lazy, what it does, it will only load the iframe when you click edit. That's very good to have some type of efficiency in the script, not to boggle tape too much. So just trying to do that in a little bit to help as much as possible. So that's what that basically is the way to do tables. So let me just rephrase a minute. In the static tables, you can create simple static tables over here. Let's wait for. So you can create very simple static tables over here by using the code, or you can create dynamic tables using the reference app, and you can add them to edit it here by adding a simple iframe. One thing about this one is that I expect when the tape record layout changes, this is going to look a lot better. And from my understanding, if you have like a template, you can probably create a template just with a full frame that you can just edit what you need. So that's going to be really cool. Because right now this looks fine. It looks okay, but it works. It works fine, which is perfect. So now what I'm gonna do, I was talking to Jason before this, and he has another way that he does these tables. So instead of what Jason does, instead of going to the calculation and adding the code here, he does it in the automation. So if Jason, you can show your process to have a different perspective.
Okay, so I don't use this all the time, but like I can try and show. I wasn't prepared for this at all, so bear with me. So hopefully you can see, hang on, you can see my screen, yeah? So if I come over here, so in this instance, what I'm doing is I'm generating it in an automation. So this is for document information that comes in. So it's gone off to AI and got a summary of the document. So you're never 100% sure in this case what the field headings are going to be or anything like that. So it basically dynamically builds a table from the data that it's given, and you can see here how I'm using this styles dot thing here. I'm declaring the styles right up at the very top of the automation. It then saves the HTML table into a multi-line text field, and then in the calculation field over here, I think it's this. Right, if I can find the right one, then it would help, wouldn't that? So I told you I wasn't prepared for this. Right, so then in this calculation field over here, we it does a couple of other things as well, which I can talk about in a minute. But it cleans up the string, and then basically to save it in the multi-line text field reliably, you have to save it as base 64. So then we decode it into a string and then basically display it. So if I close this, so you end up with a table like this. So this was this VS file up to date was the first bit in the calculation field that just did a check to see whether the record had been modified since the last time an update had been done, and then basically it puts in the table there. But so these keys, we don't know what they are at the time, so it's completely generated differently. Each document in here will have different key facts. So that's one of them, one way of doing it in an automation. I found another. So this one is similar to ones that Lewis has shown. So this pulls from related records and just builds as it goes. So it's more along the lines of what he's done. It'd be really useful if I actually named my calculation fields, wouldn't it? But that puts the heading at the top of the calculation field that I don't want. But yeah, so basically it's done in a similar way to how Lewis has shown. So basically building the styles at the top and then building variables to play with, and then building the table and then just outputting the table as HTML. So yeah.
Excellent. So that's another way of doing it via doing the table in the automation, which gives you a little bit more flexibility, and then doing that one. So let me go back to share my window one more time to see. Let's see. It's this one. So, okay. There we go. So thank you, Jason, for covering that. So what I did, I covered how to create tables and using the take calculation field. So what I'm going to do now is gonna briefly go over some CSS samples that you can use. If I go to this one that is called the CSS samples app, and I click the examples, here are a few things that you can do with the calculation. You can have the same one that I have, the toggle. This is a text toggle. You can have a toggle with a button style, very simple. You can use Flexbox to create different columns, and you can also create a contact card like this one. You can do whatever, most of the CSS stuff with the calculation field, which is fantastic. And if I go to the calculation, you see simply template literals and adding the CSS here and the HTML. And down here, the toggle is the same thing, but this one is using a div with a button style. And then the columns here is simply using the styles constant here. And then I'm calling them down here. And this is Flexbox. So let's say I only want 2 columns. All I need to do is delete these 2. And then it will convert to 2 columns, and it will adjust automatically based on the Flexbox. And you can add as many as you want here. This is basically that you have the options to use CSS as you need to. And then the contact card is basically the same thing, like a flex with an image that you can call from somewhere else. So the possibilities of using the CSS are like whatever you need to with the take calculation fields, you can do it. So now, the last thing I want to cover is something that John actually mentioned in the forum. Is he calls it the global assets. So what this is basically he's taking all of his CSS and information from the company, putting it in one app and one record, and then making reference on that and somewhere else. So I'm going to show you that, and then John, if you can actually show it on your end too of how you use it. But let me show you how it works. So I created this called controller. I usually use this controller app like for everything. I use it as a reference, put all the stuff here, and then call one specific record somewhere else. And I call it the controller. So this one is called the global CSS. So in this one, we got like something simple, like the company name, company address, phone, email, the logo, white, which is this one, logo dark, and then this calculation that is called style CSS. If I go to the customize fields and then go to that calculation, it's simply a style CSS here, all the way down with all the information about the CSS, with all the classes and stuff and their respective styling. So now the question is, how can I use the style CSS calculation? So you can use it over here in the automation. So let's say that you want to create a web page automation. So we're going to go here. And as you can see here, I'm searching for the record, and I'm searching by the app record ID, which is 1. And that will take the information from that global CSS record that I created. And down here, I'm creating and display a message on a web page. As you can see here, it looks kind of ugly, but what I'm doing, I'm referencing the style CSS up here. And then down here, I'm just using the name of the company, the email, phone, and address, which is taken directly from the related here, as you can see here. Well, the cool thing, if I were to make let's simulate the variables using the global CSS, and when I do, it's gonna process everything, and boom, it pulled all the CSS from the specific file and then created the whole web page really nicely with the logo. I got the email, I got the phone, and I got the address, and I also have the name of the company up here. The cool thing about this a global CSS is very useful because all you need to do is update just one record. So let's say over here in the global CSS, let's say you change your phone number, you just update it here, and that will be updated in all the automations that you make reference to this record. So that's really, really useful. And John, in your case, how exactly do you use that in your case?
Yeah, so I wasn't prepared to share a screen with you guys today, but more or less, we're doing the same thing. The only differences that we're doing is we're calling some specific brand colors. So like for instance, my company has like a purple and a green color for our branding. So we're specifically calling those out so that we can use them as accents throughout different elements. We also, instead of uploading our logos directly, we're calling them from a server. So we're hot linking to them from the server. We did the same thing with our CSS, our style. That way we can edit it inside of like a text-based editor, and that's always live. But yeah, you can absolutely put it inside of a calculation field. But if it needed to be accessed by somebody else that didn't have administrative privileges or whatever that is, you could hypothetically get that someplace else. And then just basically import that in and call that in.
Oh, that's really nice. That's great. So you basically update everything in one place and on the server side.
Yep. So that was the big thing. I mean, yeah, that's all the things that we're calling. Is the only thing that you didn't touch on is the fact that we're calling out some colors as well. Well, you could theoretically you could call fonts. You could call anything else really, and get as granular with that as you wanted to.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very powerful, that calculation field. It really is. So you can create basically web page inside there, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it gives you that flexibility.
And then what about the CSS that you were calling inside of the calculation fields for tape itself? I wonder if you could throw one of those inside of a variable and get those somehow.
It's possible, I think. Yeah.
I know that you can't call us style specifically, or a style sheet specifically. I don't think you can anyway.
Do you mean in the automations?
No, I mean in the you can do that, but I wonder if like in the calculation for the actual the front end or the item when you're editing it, I wonder if you could call something that you have not a style, but if you could call other snippets of CSS.
Oh. I did the variable thing. That's the closest I got for that, I think. Okay. Yeah, but it's really cool still. It works.
Oh no, yeah, for sure.
It works fantastic. Yeah, but in my case, I don't even use CSS anymore. I use Web Studio for everything. So in Web Studio, I have they have like this variable thing, which is awesome. So I create the templates there. So it's a lot easier. But for this specific scenario, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love the flexibility.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So that's basically all for my my demonstration. So we're gonna go to the questions and answer. Any questions so far, or anything you want to add? Anybody have any questions? I didn't even check the chat.
I don't think there's been too many. I've got one other way that I sometimes do styles, which I could show very quickly. If people are interested, it doesn't work the way I'm doing it in calculation fields. But basically you have a styles app with all the different styles in, which the advantage with this it means is that anybody that has permissions to it can edit it. So you don't have to, you can give permissions to certain people to be able to edit the styles, and then you can call them. So basically we've got 3 styles as an example there. And you can see them here. I'm just trying to remember, this is, so, and then in a PDF, so what you can do is you can basically call all of the styles from the app and then put them into, extract them from the records in the app and build your styles object to then call the styles within the PDF or the email. So it's another way of achieving the same thing effectively. But what the advantage is that you can give somebody, like a marketing person, for want of a bad description, access to your styles app, and they can make changes, and then that will flow through, and they don't have to be able to touch the automation. And then any PDF that's generated from that point onwards will use the new styles, for example.
That's really cool.
But it doesn't work within a well, it would, you could make it work in a calculation, but it would take a bit more, if you see what I mean. But yeah, for PDFs and emails, it works quite well.
Perfect. I see a question here. Can you have some scrollable tables inside the table to fix the columns and row? Just like John said, you're using the sticky CSS, and it should like stick it, and then when you scroll, it should stay. I haven't tested that though.
Yeah, you have to have overflow. Your table will have to have a scroll on it, and then you can freeze specific rows or columns or elements.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna test that later. Yeah. So.
And just to add to that, you might need to add a max height, because
Right.
otherwise it might not overflow. So what John says is absolutely true. So you would need to set a max height, set an overflow, and then use the sticky property. That should work.
Excellent. It's very flexible. As long as it's inline CSS, you can do almost anything. Yeah, which is really cool.
Yeah, one of the cool things is if you see something, a feature that you like on a website, most often you can inspect that, look around to see how they've built that using the, styling it with the CSS. Because I don't think that there's not a whole lot of limitations to what you can pull into tape using HTML or CSS.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to kind of liberate things and then replicate it for your own use.
Yep. And you can ask ChatGPT and it will tell you exactly what you need to put.
And
Tell
add in some indentations for me too.
Yeah.
Mess my code.
Yeah.
I swear it's got worse recently. So
yeah, perfect. So any other questions so far? Any other applications that you guys are using on your end? Something that we can use with CSS in the calculation field, HTMLs?
I'll throw one question at you, Louis. We're trying to build a table right now that's like an example of your dynamic tables, but instead of calling various related items, we're trying to look at checklists within the related items. And we want to see, so think the parent record, has 3 children records, and each of them have a checklist field, but we want the parent record to display all of the incomplete checklist items from any of the child things. And it's been a bit of a struggle. It's very similar to this, but it's just a layer deeper. Does anyone have
I can
the-
jump in here on this. I'll send you over what we use, because we've solved that. It includes everything, and then it crosses them off as you complete them.
Okay.
And then we also added in something so it updates it on a daily basis, and it changes them. Anything that's overdue then becomes red once it's older than the current date.
Ooh.
So
okay.
I can send all of that over to you. We use that for project management.
Awesome. That would be, we've got it, but so far the best way we found was inside the children items, we were actually putting a hidden text field with a list of their current activities or checklists, and then calling that into our table instead of calling the checklist directly. So I'd be happy to see what you have there, John.
I got you.
That is pretty dope. When you mentioned that, the way Jason did it would probably be the way to do it on the automation end, and then put in the base 64. That's how we'll do it. Yeah, but it's pretty dope. And Jonas, you can put that in the tape organization, the tape partners organization, so we can play with it.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
I'll move that over there.
everybody here is in that organization, right? I think Taha, you're now the partner, right? So. So we can add you, so we can share each other and test each other. With Carson, I have sent in a few stuff from there, just to help each other out. So thank you for the Tate team for providing that. Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, perfect. So any additional question, anything that you want to add on how to use the calculation field, or any questions for the Tate team about their upcoming attractions?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to the team. I just want to say thank you for getting me the ability to upload images and files from the mobile app. My team thinks I'm a hero.
Thanks a lot, John. It was a pleasure.
The little things, that's true. Perfect. So if we don't have any other questions, we can leave it up to here, and then we will see each other next month in the same link. So thank you guys for coming to the Tate Partners webinar. As always, a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good to see you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.